You think about mom and dad, they're the ultimate American dream story. They started with like hope and optimism and throwing their lot in together, and nobody knew what was going to happen. My mom and dad were a terrific and incredible American success story. They're in this little apartment, and eventually they buy a beautiful home, and they're raising this big family after trying a long time. It's pretty incredible. My parents were incredibly open-minded and generous. I think a lot of parents are ambitious for their children, and my parents were ambitious with their children.
The biggest hug that I think you can ever give another human being is, we love you no matter what.
Well, Dad was really good at that. Mom, you needed some work.
You don't get to pick your parents. We definitely won the lottery.
They were two really dynamic, wonderful people.
They're charming, they're effusive, they're just really special people.
My mom is a great lady. Becoming a docent, whether it was at Fairmount Park or at the Barnes Foundation, we're all in furtherance of her curiosity and her desire to elevate her cultural knowledge. She just loved it all.
My mother was a tough cookie. She was very hard on herself, but she had a very, very high standard. It was always aspiring to the next level. My father set his goals very high.
Aim high and shoot, he would say.
The highest award that my father won in World War II was the Soldier's Medal. It is emblematic of my dad's willingness to help his fellow man. He was a mensch.
The company's motto was 29, let's go. And my father was a let's go guy. Dad's like, let's go to Timbuktu, or like, let's go where no one has gone. I think Mom was more like reading about it. Dad was like, let's go do it.
Right. Mom did say, lap up the flavor.
Yeah.
Don't forget, lap up the flavor.
So this journey, right, they start to think about what their legacy is going to be in the community.
I always think that time is actually, in many respects, the most valuable and most precious.
Yeah.
I think that my mom had a real feeling in her heart about how challenging it was to be a mom. And I think that she really had a great appreciation of how lucky she was. There were a lot of Soviet Jews coming into the United States, and a lot of children who needed to learn English, and Mom would go and she would read to children. Nothing made me prouder than when I saw them help others. What do you do when your dearest family needs help and you can't do it yourself? There was only one place in my mind, and that place was definitely going to be the Hebrew home, because I trusted them.
Sarah says this is what's going on medically. This is what needs to happen.
Yes.
Right.
The Hebrew home ended up being, for me, initially like a really scary place, because it's an admission that sort of like the end is getting closer, and my parents were not immortal.
The Hebrew home was a warm and caring and safe place for our parents.
It was home, ultimately, and that's what mattered. Like, it felt like home.
The Bernsteins are the perfect example of making it work for everybody that's involved.
The Hebrew home, which is really the jewel in the crown of RiverSpring living, is a unique place. We are the bright light that differentiates what quality long-term care looks like. Our families, the residents who live here, our staff, know that we are trustworthy.
What a meaningful moment when a family says to you that we trust you with the most important people in their lives.
As I speak with family members who are contemplating bringing a loved one to our community, I remind them about the conversations I've had with other family members and residents who have told me that they wish that they had come here sooner.
Better than a 5-star rating is that Charlotte Bernstein decided she was going to move there.
That's
the
true.
highest bar.
My parents were very comfortable at the Hebrew home. They both had beautiful rooms. They looked at the river. They loved the light.
My favorite memory of Charlotte Bernstein is being invited into her room. Having worked here for 38 years, I've been in hundreds and hundreds of rooms, but there was no room like Charlotte's room. What a highlight to be invited in to sit with Charlotte talk about her day, talk about whatever was important to her, and have a cup of tea.
I remember when Mom was in the hospital and her heart was failing. It was the moment where she just turned to me and said, I want to go home. She wanted to go to her room at the Hebrew home.
Yep.
Because it felt like home.
Thank you for letting us get to know your parents and be able to provide richness to their years of life here at the Hebrew home.
These are two portraits I'd hang in my apartment. I can often hear my wife when she passes by saying, "Good night, Stan. Good night, Charlotte."